Yeah, it's a beginning for Entz, and it's a new beginning for USC. And you know, so one thing that Tim and I talked about on our Friday call-in show was what's going on with the defensive staff. Why haven't we seen more movement? Why haven't we seen more action in terms of Danton Lynn filling out his defensive staff? Because and again, like to give everyone a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here, let's all step back and remind ourselves it is so dumb that we have the portal open right now and we have the early signing period right now while coaches are trying to latch onto jobs and they're trying to coach their teams in bowl games. It's really dumb. And obviously, that does complicate things for USC, for all the other schools and head coaches that are trying to fill out staff. So that's there, and we have to acknowledge that. But nevertheless, it was beginning to get a little concerning that USC wasn't filling out the defensive staff, because you obviously you do want to get on the recruiting trail. You do want to make an impact in the portal. So you want to get as many hires on board to say, here's what we're looking at for all our different defensive position spots. This is the quality of coaching you can expect. So it was beginning to get a little concerning that staff slots weren't getting filled out. So now with Matt Entz, first off, getting a guy who's extremely credentialed. I mean, you're getting a multinational champion head coach at the FCS level, and he wanted to come. Like, you don't leave the North Dakota State dynasty. If you're king of an empire, I don't care where that empire is, whether it's in the Dakotas or Boise or Texas or Memphis, wherever. Being king of a locality, pretty sweet gig. You'll never have to pay for a drink or a meal. Everyone wants to kiss the ring. If you have it made in any locality, you don't leave that for just anything. You leave it for something that you think is going to be special. So, wow, Lincoln Riley convinces a North Dakota State head coach, the head coach of a dynastic power, to come to USC. And people are going to say, I mean, you already alluded to it, Mark. You get to spend your winters in Los Angeles instead of the Dakotas. Okay, but still, like, you were having a very successful run. You don't interrupt that again for just anything. So that tells me that, all right, it's nice to talk about valuing defense. It's nice to talk about physicality, but we needed to see actions match the rhetoric. We needed to see deeds match the words. And this is concrete proof. Like, this is really solid in terms of actually doing things that reinforce, that back up your claims that you are going to value defense. I mean, if you were going to just say, hey, I'm going to hire a two-time national champion head coach as my linebackers coach and a defensive assistant for my young new defensive coordinator, you would say, yeah, that looks like you're really serious about defense. I mean, if you were going to just come up with a plot point or a storyline, you'd pretty much do that. And the other last detail for me to mention before I throw it over to Tim for his thoughts is that, this is why it took a little longer, right? This is why it took a little more time to get this particular staffer on board because, well, North Dakota State's playing playoff football right now. So obviously that was delicate in terms of when to move, when to act on this thing. So like that piece of the puzzle makes a little more sense. If this is a guy that USC was targeting, no wonder it took a little bit longer to put this thing together. But Tim, your reaction to this hire?
No, I think you said it best. You and I on air, off air, we're talking about it's great to say these wonderful things about the defense comes first. We're going to build an elite defense. I think a lot of fans were waiting, hearing that, and believing it was going to happen, and believes it's going to happen. And there's been so much momentum against Lincoln Riley, saying he has this huge blind spot. He doesn't care about the defense. The steps he just took by the money, and also going back, let's rewind. Remember at the press conference, he talked about the amazing alignment they had at the university, from Carol Folt all the way down to him, and that they were going to provide him everything he would need to be successful. Well, now he's asking for it, and they're putting up the money. They're putting forth some good money to get these hires. Lynn didn't come over cheap. And right now, you have one of the hottest names as defensive coordinator, young name coming up, and now you double that down. The issue is now you kind of balance out that, what was the big thing we were talking about, Matt? We're saying that, Lynn's is great, but what's the deficit? What's the one thing we could pick out? The experience. Well, you pair him up with a guy like Matt Entz, and then boom, now you have it. On top of it, we've been talking about for weeks, Matt. We've talked about an enforcer, right? I don't know a hell of a lot about Matt Entz. I've been trying to catch up, trying to figure it all out. But that dude looks like an ass kicker too. He might be that ass kicker guy that we need in the program. I definitely know he hits. I know they're going to want to hit. I know it's not going to be soft. We're talking about changing everything, about including practice. I think now with Lynn and with Entz, you're going to see a huge difference on defense. I talked about the post-game show after the UCLA game when we saw UCLA. I said the one thing I did see in that UCLA team was they were ready. They were ready to go. Their attention to detail, and they all seem like on the same page. And he got there like in February or March. So the fact that he was able to get that done so fast and get them on the same page, now you're bringing in Entz. He was just talking about one of the few videos I got to see about him is he was talking about how he defends against hurry up offense, right? And no huddle. And he was talking about how he slims it down. So, in the end zone and third downs, the offense got to slow down so you could slow down. He's all, but when there was middle, you're in the middle of the field, he's talking about trimming down the playbook so the guys know exactly where to be, then setting up trash cans on either side and going back from formation to formation to have the guys on the fly, making changes and getting the right formations based on the calls he had. And he slimmed down the playbook. After watching this last season, this guy's just singing everything I want to hear. We're going to let our athletes go out there and fly around and play football. So I'm excited.
Let's get this one from Adam, our resident Lincoln Riley skeptic. And hey, skepticism of Lincoln Riley is warranted at a time like this. So just want to call it straight with Adam. The skepticism is legitimate. Did Lynn or Riley make the hire? Well, first off, Adam, I would tell you that when Lincoln Riley hired D'Anton Lynn and when they had their interview, I'm sure that Lincoln Riley and D'Anton Lynn had a conversation of, hey, who do you want for your defensive staff? How do you want to populate and fill out that staff? What either a specific name or a kind of coach that you would like? And I'm sure that with Tim making the astute point about experience being the one thing at the collegiate level. D'Anton Lynn has plenty of NFL experience, but he's been at coaching college just 1 year. I'm sure Riley and Lynn, Adam, had a conversation about, who do you want on your staff? How do you see all of this shaping up? And I'm sure they got D'Anton Lynn's opinions and preferences in terms of what he'd like. And so I would have to imagine that at some point D'Anton Lynn said, hey, give me an experienced guy, along with me who can be kind of a sounding board and who, values toughness, values hitting, physicality, the same way that I do. So, Adam, I'm sure that it was collaborative. It's not as though Riley, just did this thing unilaterally. It was a collaboration. And this tells me that when Jen Cohen and Lincoln Riley hired D'Anton Lynn, that, there was certainly a conversation about how do we branch this out? How do we map things out in terms of several different steps? And of course, as fans, seeing time tick away, tick, 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 the days just melting away without a whole lot of incoming portal activity and without that surge in recruiting that we're all hoping for, those were restless days. We can't deny that. And people were right to be nervous and antsy, but you waited a few extra days to get a coach of this caliber to help your young hotshot defensive coordinator. Those extra days, I would have to say, are worth it. And you're going into the Big Ten too. That's another thing worth mentioning. You are going into a slobber knocker conference. You are going into a league where you need when you go to Kinnick Stadium for an 11 a.m. breakfast game or a brunch game, and it's 35, 40 degrees. You better bring your hitting shoes. You better be ready to slug with the Hawkeyes. And so getting Matt Entz from the Dakotas, that tells me, okay, we're we're ready to become this tough guy, Midwestern street fight, alley cat team that can go in and win a 17-10 Big Ten slugfest if that's what it takes to win in this conference.